In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a random number. Now, random numbers are really important because they're actually the backbone of what makes games and programming where you don't want to know the actual outcome of what the computer is going to complete or generate for you. It's done through a random number generation. So right now, basically everything we've been doing, we kind of know exactly what the computer is going to do because we program it that way. So we know, to this point, we know what number the computer would select or how many times something is going to happen. What a random number generator does, or what random means, is that we are letting the computer do something that we don't understand, or we don't know where it's coming up with this number. It's random. We have no idea. So what does this look like? Well, first, I'm going to show you how to set up a random number because there's actually 3 steps to do it. And then we'll show you how to actually use one. So the first thing we want to do is step 1. This is just like whenever we use color. We have to do an import statement. And that basically tells Java that, hey, we want to use your random number generator. We want you to create random numbers for us. So you'll just do an import java.util.random. And that'll be step 1. So this is needed for random number generation. If you don't have this, your code isn't going to work. You'll never get that random number. Then, of course, we create the class in the main method. And then on line 6, we have to create, basically, just think of this as, if you've ever seen like one of those boxes with a whole bunch of question marks, you don't know what's inside of it. This is what this line does. So we are creating this little question mark box that every time we put our hand in that box and we pull something out, that's going to be our random number. We don't know what number is going to come out of it. So to get that box in system memory, we've got to do line 6. And so we've got to use the keywords random, and then this is our variable name, rand. Now you can call it anything you want to. I just traditionally always called mine rand. You can call it anything you want to. So we're going to say random rand equals new random. And what that's going to do is that makes this question mark box in computer memory. Okay, so now it's there. We've got this box that's going to give us random numbers. So that's step 2. Notice we have not made a random number yet. Step 1 is just telling Java that we want to use its random number function. Step 2 is saying that we want to actually make that box. So those 2 steps, we need those before we can generate a random number. Step 3 says let's actually generate the number. And to do that, I've just declared a variable. I've called it dice roll. And I said dice roll equals random.nextInt. So this is the line right here that actually makes the random number. Rand just goes to the box. Okay, so there's the box that we created with the question marks. We don't know what, this got a bunch of numbers in it, and every time we call that box, it's going to give us a new random number. So we're going to go rand, and then the next int, that method just returns a number to us. So then we're going to print out our random number. That's what this line does. So if we compile and run it, you'll see right now we've created the box, or we told Java we're going to use the box. We've created the box. We've declared our variable dice roll, and then we've said dice roll equals rand.nextInt. So if we look here, there's the number that was randomly created for us. Okay, that's a random integer that was generated, and this is negative. Because it's an integer, your range is going to be negative 3 billion to positive 3 billion approximately. So we're going to get a random number between those numbers. And every time I click run, I'm going to get a new randomly generated number. And for some reason, they want to come off negative this time. Those are all negative. They're not always like that. Still negative. Different numbers still, there you go, there's a positive. So the random numbers are going to be somewhere between that negative 3 billion to positive 3 billion. Okay, so that's good. That gives us a random number. Kind of big though, and that's kind of our problem because we're actually looking to do a dice roll. And a dice roll has to have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 because those are the sides on a dice. And so these numbers are way too big for our dice roll. Well, luckily, what we can do is I'm just going to copy, I'm going to repeat this line right here. And we'll just go ahead and paste it right down here. We're going to have Java narrow the scope of our numbers. So what we want to do is, right now with the empty parentheses, that says use any integer you want. Okay, so there's no limiting factor. There's no ceiling on how high the number can be. Just use any one. Well, what we want to do right now is we want to tell Java we don't want to use every possible number. We actually want to use 6 of the numbers. So if I do 6 right here, okay, and then we're going to compile, you're going to see that we're going to get I better run it too. There you go. There's our first random number. That's every possible random number. Now we've got a random number to 6. And so what that's going to do, that's much better because that says, hey, we're only going to use 6 digits. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put this in a loop. So we'll just do 4, and we'll do int x equals 0, and let's say x less than 100. So we'll do this 100 times, and then x plus plus. Okay, so we'll just throw that inside of a for loop really quick here. That way we can actually, loops and random numbers kind of go hand in hand, especially if you want to see them. And so what this is going to basically generate 100 random numbers for us. And we can actually see what our dice rolls come out. So if we press compile, I must have forgot something there. Int x plus plus, I see it. There we go. Forgot the parenthesis. Compile and run that. And, oh, look at this. Well, isn't that interesting? So we got all 5s in there. Well, why did we get all 5s? Because we never regenerated the random number. So here we generated the random number of 5. So there's our first one. There's our really big random number. The second one we generated right here was the number 5. Okay? And then we went inside this loop, and we just said print that random number. So we just printed 5 a whole bunch of times. Well, the thing is, we want to generate a new random number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dice roll, and I'm going to generate a new random number every time I go through that loop. So each iteration is going to give us a new random number. So now whenever I compile, that's better. Okay, so here's my dice rolls. There's our huge random number. And so I got a dice roll. 4, 2, 5, 5, 1, 3, 0. Have to make note of that. I got a 0 there. Next thing I want to do is I want to find out where my 6 is, because I should have a number 6. We've done this 100 times. And you'll notice there's no 6. So my dice roll has a little problem. Actually, it has 2 problems. My first problem is that I'm getting zeros. Well, dice don't have zeros on them, so that's not a valid dice roll. My other problem is I don't have a 6. So in all my dice rolls, maybe if I did it 1,000 times, let's just increase this by just 1,000. We'll find that 0 here. So we'll compile, or that 6. We'll compile. We're going to run that. And there's 1,000 times. I'm just watching the numbers scroll on by, and I do not see, and I am seeing every other number, 2, 3, 4, 5, and zeros, but again, no 6. So I see zeros, but no 6s. Well, what's actually going on here is every time we generate a random number, we are using 6 digits. Okay, the computer's generating a random number using 6 digits. The thing that it's not telling you that it's doing is that the digits start counting at 0. So if you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's your 6 digits, including 0, but the digits that are being generated are 0 through 5. So our dice roll has a little problem, and that is we're getting the 6 digits that we need, but the problem is they start counting at 0. The easiest way to fix this and to actually narrow our scope is to do the dice roll is we want to do 6, and outside of the parentheses we want to do 6 plus 1. Okay, so what does this do right here? This dice roll says, look, we want to generate a random number, so we're going to our random number box, okay, and we're sticking our hand in there, and then we want to generate a 6, so using 6 digits, we want to pick out one random number, starting with 0. So we're going to get a random number between 0 and 5. That's what that line does. What adding 1 to it does, it's still a random number, we're just adding 1 to whatever that random number was. So if the random number was 0, it goes to 1, 1 is 2, 2 is 3, 3 is 4, 4 is 5, and 5 becomes 6. Thus, we've eliminated the 0 altogether. We'll never get a 0. And if we get a 5, that'll become 6. So again, it's still random. It's just random in our range of numbers that we want. So now if you look at our dice rolls, and you can see the 6 is scrolling on by, and we're not getting any zeros either. And that is how you do a dice roll, and that is how you manage and work with random numbers.